Now, from the Columbia Basin, your local news source, this is iFIBER 1 News, presented in high definition. The #1 source for real-time local news, local sports headlines, and our very own Weather Center forecast covering the entire Columbia Basin. With your iFIBER 1 News team, reporting news in real time as it's happening. From the iFIBER Communications HD broadcast studio in Ephrata, Washington, this is iFIBER 1 News, and it starts now.
Welcome to iFIBER 1 News. I'm Cody Johnson with news from around the Columbia Basin for Wednesday, March 13th. Tonight we report on the collision that left Grant County Undersheriff Dave Pinozzo injured and how Soap Lake is considering changing their main street into a one-way street. We look at how David Nichols' defense attorneys are making a second attempt for a new trial and how a bill to require background checks for all gun sales stalled in Olympia. In sports, we'll take a look at the Pac-12 tournament in Las Vegas, and we have news on Felix Hernandez from spring training. Our spotlight story tonight is about a group of history fans who brought war to the Oasis Park in Ephrata. And we have the latest weather forecast for the Columbia Basin from the iFIBER 1 Weather Center. Our top story tonight, Grant County Undersheriff Dave Pinozzo was injured in a collision on State Route 28 near Soap Lake yesterday. Pinozzo, a 52-year-old Ephrata man, was driving a 2011 Ford Explorer sheriff's vehicle east on SR 28 at about 4 p.m. when he reportedly collided with the rear of a 1994 Buick LeSabre driven by 63-year-old Linda Ann Mitchell of Soap Lake. The Washington State Patrol is investigating and state the collision was reportedly caused by failure to yield right-of-way. Any charges are pending a full investigation. Mitchell was reportedly stopped on SR 28 while waiting to take a left turn onto Dry Coulee Road when her vehicle was struck by Pinozzo. The SUV then left the road. Mitchell reportedly refused medical aid for minor injuries while Pinozzo was transported to Columbia Basin Hospital. According to State Patrol Trooper Darren Wright, Pinozzo was shaken up but is doing okay. Soap Lake is looking at ways to enhance business. One proposal would expand sidewalks and turn the main street in Soap Lake into a one-way street. Here with the story is Ryan Lancaster.
As part of a downtown revitalization project, the city of Soap Lake is planning to make part of Main Avenue a one-way street. The decision came with some controversy.
The plan is to make one block of Main between Daisy and Canna streets one-way, allowing for sidewalks to be widened and diagonal parking to remain in place. The idea is part of a state-funded $1.5 million redesign that the city hopes will attract more travelers to leave the highway for lunch, shopping, and perhaps an overnight stay. Early last month, the Citizen Planning Committee came up with a final plan with some help from Washington State University's Rural Community Design Initiative. City engineer Gray and Osborne signed off on the one-way configuration, and the council was asked to approve it last week. But downtown business owner Dwayne Nitch presented a petition against the plan, signed by 17 of his peers. Nitch and others argue they weren't consulted on the plan, which they say will result in a bottleneck and end up deterring traffic from entering the downtown area. But Mayor Raymond Gravel and others pointed to months of planning and public workshops prior to the plan's approval. Engineer Mike Meskimen said if the one-way configuration does become a problem, the city could revert back to a two-way street with little cost, although one side of the street would have to become parallel parking. The council ultimately approved the design 4 votes to 2, with councilmember Crystal Lindgren absent. Construction bids on the project should open in a couple of weeks. For iFIBER 1 News, this is Ryan Lancaster reporting.
That would make for an interesting change the next time you visit Maskers Theater. David Nichols' attorneys will get a second chance to argue why Judge Evan Sperline should change his mind on a new trial. The defense's motion asking Sperline to reconsider his decision denying the 32-year-old Helena, Montana man's request is being set for a hearing. Nichols was convicted of murder in the first degree in September for killing Ephrata's Sage Monroe. The defense attorneys asked for a new trial, at first claiming they had new evidence showing another man committed the crime. Later, they accused jurors of misconduct. Now they are claiming prosecutors gave the judge police reports instead of sworn affidavits, and alleging the prosecutors gave a deal to one of the men who claimed to have heard a confession about the defense's alternate murderer. Spurline denied the first attempt at a new trial and will hold a hearing to determine the defense's second attempt. For more on this story, you can visit us online at iFiber1.com/news. The Moses Lake City Council agreed to closing roads for the Moses Lake Business Association's annual barbecue bash planned for September 21st and 22nd. The event is a barbecue cooking competition with cash prizes, and the winner gets to compete at the national competition. In February, the council declined the request, with Mayor Bill Ekert saying some of the downtown businesses were unhappy with the event. He had requested a survey. They found 29 out of 36 businesses supported the barbecue bash. 2 had trouble responding due to language barriers, and 6 didn't take part in the survey.
Ms. Lane?
If there were some objections, were there any suggestions to accommodate what they were missing, if you will?
And I actually was really pleasantly surprised that those who were opposed seemed very open to working something out to see that the events could still continue on. So we're willing definitely to work with those who are definitely against seeing the events and seeing what we can do to address that.
City Council discussed the matter briefly before Council Member John Lane motioned to approve the group's request and allow the barbecue competition to continue.
Very much supportive of it, and I'm sure MLBA will look at ways of making it better and making it, working with the merchants, and that's what we're all about, but I think it's a great event.
Mr. Reese?
I've been for it from the beginning, so I would have approved it last meeting, but we wanted to check some things out, so other than that, it's a good deal.
I think it's a good exercise and it did not take that long to do our due diligence and check with the business owners to make sure that what we're doing downtown is a benefit to the downtown and a benefit to the businesses that are in downtown. We're not deterring from their sales, we're not deterring from their livelihood. And even an informal survey, I think, is the least we could do to protect our business owners.
The council voted unanimously in favor of allowing the event. Each of the people you see here have warrants for their arrest and are wanted by various law enforcement agencies. If you see any of these people, the DOC asks that you not attempt to detain or apprehend them, but to call police. You can also call the Department of Corrections at 509-764-6180 during the day, or 509-762-1160 after 5 p.m. We'll be right back after these messages with the latest from the iFiber One Weather Center, and we have sports and more news on the way.